I'm moving forward every day, Jesus. I just let him lead the way every second, every minute, every hour of the day. I'm moving with Jesus every day. 24/7 with Jesus every day. 24/7. I'm moving with Jesus. I'm moving with Jesus every day.
Welcome to JC 24/7. Today I'm here with Dr. Kirk Gooden, a urologist by profession. But today he does not sit in his capacity as a urologist. He sits in his capacity as a Christian. He is Jamaican born who grew up in a town called Jonestown, otherwise known as the jungle, where he met Jesus. And he's here to share his experience of how Jesus can be in the jungle. Thank you again, Dr. Gooden, for taking the time to be with us on JC 24/7. I am told that you grew up in humble beginnings. Could you tell us a little bit about your family life? How was it as you grew up in the jungle? Now, I've never been to Jamaica, so you'd have to edify me a little bit.
Right. So I grew up in Jonestown, but the community was so bad that they call it the jungle. I mean, essentially, you heard gunshots on a regular basis.
Right.
You heard it so regularly that I had the ability to tell you what type of guns that were fired. I had the ability
Wow.
to even tell you who was firing the gun, because soldiers would fire certain types of gun, the police would fire a certain type, and the bad men would fire a certain type. And that was how frequently that we heard gunshots. But I born in Jonestown from 1974 to my mother, Miss Beckford, a beautiful woman, thank God for her. Well, I didn't know my father, and it so happened that my father was actually living in the same yard that we were living.
Right.
But I didn't know he was my father.
Wow.
He was actually living with his wife and his children. But life was difficult for me because my mother was unable to read or write. So she was a domestic helper for all her life. And so the money that she was getting was insufficient to really provide for us. So things were difficult. We hardly had food to eat for most time. I remember there were times when I was so hungry that if I saw rice grain on the ground, I would literally, take up the rice grain to eat.
Wow.
Because I was so hungry.
Now, I said I didn't go to Jamaica, but what I really meant is that I never went to Jonestown, so I don't have appreciation for what you're talking about.
Right.
But from what I'm hearing, it's a socially depressed area.
Right.
Is it that many people grew up like you do, or you were one of those who really had it bad?
No, so Jonestown, we had a lot of youths that grew up in Jonestown like myself, who had difficulty. A lot of them grew up without fathers. Well, some of them, unfortunately, didn't have fathers and mothers.
Right.
And we were exposed to gang leaders. We were exposed to gun rivalry.
Wow.
So it's either you became a gunman or you decided that you weren't going down that road at all.
And what stopped you from getting involved, if you didn't?
Well, from very young, I was involved in church.
Okay.
So my mother would send me to Sunday school from very young, and then I became a Christian at age 11. And that was the best decision that I've ever made in my life. I got involved in the youth ministry. I became youth president of my youth ministry at age 13.
But how do you reconcile the fact that God existed in Jonestown, in the jungle? If there's Jesus there, how could there be such criminal activities taking place?
Tell the truth, and it was very, difficult initially, because I usually ask God, this question: why I had to be born to a mother like this? Why I wasn't born in a rich community? Why I wasn't born to a rich family and we had a nice house and a nice car? Because it was just so hard, and I could not believe that a God would allow to happen to someone like me.
Right.
But guess what? I could look back now,
Right.
and I could be so grateful for it, because now I can use my experience to encourage
Right.
others that despite the fact that you may come from a very bad community, that you can make something of your life. God can make a difference in your life.
But of course, when you asked the question, it wasn't because you didn't love your mother.
No. I love my mother dearly. I mean, for her to just see her get up early every morning to go to work. And I remember sometimes she would come home crying because people would abuse her. You know, people would say bad things about her, like, you know, you can't read, you can't write, you're so stupid, you're dumb. And as a child growing up and seeing that, that hurt me.
Of course.
And that was the actual thing that encouraged me to actually work hard.
What was she doing, by the way? What kind of work was she doing?
She would go, she was a domestic worker. So
Right.
she would go to people's house and
Right.
clean their house and wash for them. You know, and, you know, people would take advantage of her because she was unable to read or write, and they will abuse her. They will say bad things to her.
So it's verbal abuse mostly?
Mostly
Okay.
verbally abuse. And, you know, sometimes she comes home and, you know, she'll be crying, and I will see those tears. And, you know, she will let me know, you know, what had happened.
Right.
But that was what encouraged me, actually. Because I said to myself, when I saw her and what was happening to her, I said, I don't want that to happen to me. How can I be different? And I decided that I was going to, you know, work hard and take my academics seriously. And I really studied hard because I wanted to be something, and I wanted to be able to help my mother and to even help others.
Right. As you grew older, how did you begin to see the God that you serve playing a significant part in your upbringing?
Well, you know, I said I became a Christian at age 11. I was very, very involved in church, but he became such an intimate part
So you
of my
still
life.
chose Jesus in spite of all?
In spite of
Why?
everything.
What caused you to choose
No,
this?
well, I realized that, you know, he was the only answer. I realized that because there were so many things that everybody else was doing, but yet still they were still suffering. I mean, you saw the bad men; they were doing badness, but they were dying out.
Right. Okay.
So I said, boy, that didn't make sense. You know. So I said, I mean, let me give Jesus a try.
But,
you know.
and permit me to call you Kirk now because this is the man we're talking to. You were still living in a depressed environment. You were still socially displaced, if you like, or at least misplaced. Didn't Jesus hear your cry when you were calling out to him to help you?
Well, he did. You know, because there were many you know, situations that I've been through that God, you know, made a way.
Right.
You know, when I was going to school, I didn't have lunch. There were situations where I remember this young man at school, Alston Miller from high school, he just share his lunch with me. I mean, these are the things I realized, you know, you have to realize God in the little things in life.
Right.
You know, and you know, God, even sometimes the teachers, when I'm going to primary school, sometimes the teachers would share their lunch with me. When I didn't have lunch, you know, then whatever was a sandwich bread, they would share. Because I remember when I was growing up, my breakfast was like a slice of bread and bush tea, whatever that bush tea would be, whether it be lime leaf, soursop leaf. Yeah, that was my breakfast. And sometimes the bread was there for so long that it had fungus on the bread.
You're kidding me.
And I'll eat that bread with that fungus.
Ouch.
You know? And, you know, nobody will know. I'll be stepping strongly going to school and nobody would have realized that, you know, that I was eating bread with fungus. But there were times when I had to because things were that rough.
And that was breakfast, you said?
That was breakfast.
There was no guarantee of what lunch would look like.
Well, I can tell you something. I didn't have lunch. Because what usually happened, my mother would give me like...
You didn't have lunch.
No, well, exactly what I said. I didn't have lunch. I remember my mom, she would give me whatever she could. That money that she gave me was enough for me to buy one day's lunch. So for the rest of the week, I wouldn't have. Well, let me tell you this. That money, I had to actually save that money because I had to use that money to buy, you know, to help buy my own khaki pants. And then also I had to save again to pay the tailor to make the pants.
Oh, Lord.
So I literally went, you know, without lunch. And then, so when I was coming back from school in the evenings now, I was like praying. I said, God, I hope I have some dinner at home. You know? And glory be to God. I mean, we did have enough to for survival, and
How many of you living together by that time?
well, it was three of us.
Right.
My sister, but she was actually living with her father,
Right.
and then I was living with my brother.
Right.
So it's three of us. We all had, I mean, three different fathers.
Right. Okay.
And so it was just me, my brother, and my mother.
Okay.
But we were living in three rooms.
Right.
There were two bedrooms,
Mhm.
and then one room was the kitchen, the living room, the dining room. That was one room. So you cooked, you live in one, and you
Right.
dine in the same room.
Wow.
So it was very claustrophobic. And from ever since I was young, I did not like the whole idea of living in that claustrophobic environment.
Let's get to your father, because you said your father was living in the same environment.
Yeah.
Same.
No, right. So that was very interesting, right?
Right.
Because the fact of the matter is, I when I was growing up, I didn't ask for a father. I actually didn't realize that my father was living there, and he was living there with his wife and his children.
Where's it there? How far away is there?
Well, we were living in what we call a tenement yard.
Right,
Meaning
I
it's
heard
one of
about that.
those yards we have more than one family living in the
Okay.
in the yard.
Right.
And so he was there, and so I saw him as a normal, man,
Oh, so you
looking
met-
after his children.
Okay.
But I didn't know that he was my father,
Right.
and I didn't ask who was my father.
Okay.
It was not until when I was got into high school, there was a form that needed to be filled out, and on that form there was a part where you had to fill out the name of father, and my mother put this man's name, Victor Gooden. I said, wait, he's my father? But that was the end of the story, because so for some reason my mother didn't like the whole idea to talk about it.
Wow.
So up to this very day, I don't know exactly
Okay.
what happened. She got
Right.
very angry and tearful and didn't tell me much about what happened.
So before that, there wasn't any desire on your part to know who your father was?
No, and that I found very strange.
That is strange.
I don't know why. I really don't know why. The only time I remember I really wanted a father was when I was a teenager.
Right.
And I was going through, these hormonal issues where, your emotions were riding high and you're becoming attracted to girls, and I didn't sure how to deal with it.
Right.
And even though I was so involved, I was still very shy. And I really wish I had my father. I actually started imagining myself going out with my father having picnic, and he, telling me, about how to deal with these things. And at that age, I remember I got his number. He was in the States by then. I got his number and tried to make contact with him to hopefully build a relationship. But that didn't go well at all.
It didn't go well. We want to pause a little bit, because what you're about to hear is going to maybe interest you. We'll be right back as we continue the thrilling story of Kirk's life. We'll be right back.
In life, it's extremely important that you always speak positively. So one of our problems is that we speak negatively, and whatever you speak, you will have. So despite the fact that I grew up without a father, and despite the fact that I grew up in Jonestown, that was such a difficult place to live. But that I did not allow that to affect my life. From very young, I learned to speak positively. I spoke about, myself. I was like, God is good. I am perfectly and wonderfully made. I spoke those things over my life. I spoke about the wife that I wanted to have. I spoke about the children, that I wanted to have. I spoke about their lives. I mean, now that I'm married and I have 2 kids, I continue to speak positively over their life. And everything that I have spoken about has materialized in my life. And so I will encourage every young person, don't ever speak anything negative, because whatever you speak in your life, you shall have. So speak positively. It doesn't matter how bad the situation is. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter who your parents are. Just learn to speak positively. And the God that you serve, I tell you something, He will be there, and He will make the impossible situation become possible in the name of Jesus.
Jesus in the Jungle is the caption of our program for today. And yeah, we are here with Dr. Kirk Gooden as he tells us the thrilling story of his life in the jungle in Jamaica. When we broke, we were talking about the fact that you made contact finally with your father. How did that go?
Well, that didn't go down well. My father was very angry. He was wondering who gave me his number, and he instantly hung up.
So he didn't want to see you at all?
No, he didn't want to see me. He didn't want to
hear from
me any at all. And I remember that same day when I made contact to my other siblings,
right,
by my father's side, he actually called them the same evening, and he was angry with them for giving them his number.
Oh boy.
He was very, very angry. So
how did you feel?
No, that made me feel sad. I mean, at the time, but God made me, with this enormous ability where I'm able to, overlook things, bad things quickly.
Right.
And I just, moved on with my life.
Did you see your father after that?
I saw him, and the next time I saw him actually was when I got married.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we actually made contact sometime after.
This is how many years after?
I can't recall exactly
how many years
after,
okay.
But we did make contact. But this would have been when I graduated from medical school.
Okay.
And he was going through some issue at colon cancer. He was in hospital. He wasn't hearing from any of his children, and his wife at the time, she called me and asked me to call him.
Wow.
Because he was feeling sad and lonely.
Wow.
And I called him, and I gladly spoke to him. I did not have anything, bad to say to him. I just used the opportunity just to encourage him, and he appreciated that.
Okay.
And then subsequently, when I got married now, I had actually invited him and his wife to come.
And they came.
And they came to the wedding.
How did that make you feel?
No, that was good because I've always wanted my parents to be there
present. Okay.
So my mother was there.
Right.
And my father was there, and I have pictures of them.
Beautiful.
That was amazing.
How long after? I suppose he passed.
Yeah, my father died actually about 3 years ago now, approximately.
Okay.
He has passed on.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned medical school. How long did you want to to join the medical fraternity?
Well, the funny thing about it, when I was a little boy, about maybe 5 years of age, when I was going to preschool, I usually would go around and catch grasshoppers, and I would cut them. I would think that I was a doctor cutting grasshoppers. And then when I started going primary school,
poor grasshoppers.
when I was going to primary school, I remember whenever they had any function, I only had one bush jacket. Now you guys call it shirt jack, I think.
Right, so jack.
In Jamaica, they say bush jacket.
Right,
with 4 pockets.
4 pockets, right.
I had this one brown
bush jacket
that I wore to every function that they had.
You ready for me jungle in truth?
That I wore to every function at primary school, and they usually tease me then, and usually call me doctor, and some would tease me and say professor, and I would gladly receive it, and and then at age 11, I remember I read a book that Ben Carson wrote, and Ben Carson had a similar upgrowing where his mother had gotten pregnant, I think, at age 13, and then the father left, and so he was left with his mother.
What's the name of that book? Not Think Big. It's not.
I can't remember. Okay. It's not Think Big. I can't remember the name, but that was one of the first books that he wrote. So that book actually motivated me because when I saw what he went through, it was almost similar circumstances to some extent, and that motivated me. And to see what he became eventually, that motivated me at age 11. So I was bent on becoming a doctor from very young, from that age. Yeah.
So God saw a doctor in the jungle.
He saw that, but it was difficult for me with my physical eyes to see that with all the challenges that we were going through, without a father, a mother who couldn't read and write, who was just a domestic worker, and then living in that community where you heard gunshots on a regular basis. I remember, when I was studying, I literally sometimes had to lie on the ground studying because when there were shots firing, you couldn't keep your lights on. You know, because if you did, you would be attracting.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
and I remember lying down and using a lamp to study, because occasionally you'll have gunshots that could go through the wall. You
Okay.
know, but I had
So
to
you were
study.
lying down
I
and
lying
studying.
down.
So how could you study in the midst of gunshot?
No, you see, I think when you have made a choice in your life that you want to
see.
be something different, it didn't matter what else was happening. I think one of the problems with us as human
amazing. That's
beings is that we
amazing.
focus so much on what is happening.
But how could you not focus on gunshots, my brother? Gunshots are flying all over the place and you are studying. How's that
The thing
possible?
about it, I realized from very young that it made no sense. And then, you know, having been involved in church, being youth president, I got opportunity to visit other communities. I got opportunity to be a part of other family.
Right.
So I saw another side of life.
Okay.
I realized that life is not always like this. Life is not about gunshots.
Right.
You know, life is not about you starving and, you know, having nothing to eat. And, you know, no, there was the other side of it. And that's what God did for me when I got involved in church. I was able to see another side. I was able to be with families where they had fathers and mothers and children, and the fathers were taking care of their family.
Okay.
You know?
But surely, I mean, in the midst of gunshots, you could be easily distracted.
Well, that's true.
So I'm hearing you say that while you weren't isolated from the gunshots, you were insulated somewhat from all that was taking place, and he helped you focus on that.
That had to be God, because it's not easy to focus living in this sort of condition. It's not easy to focus while you hear all of these gunshots firing around you. It's not easy to focus when you're hungry.
That's
It's
right.
not easy to focus. So that situation actually brought me closer to God. God became real to me, you know, because I never had a choice. I had to pray like never before. Had to read His Word like never before. And the thing about it was that while I was even going through that, God was using me to help others. And that's where I realized, don't get caught up with what you're going through.
Right.
While you're going through what you're going through, use that opportunity to be a blessing to somebody else.
Somebody else.
You know, and that's what I did. I was helping the young people. I remember the little money that I would have gotten, I would save it sometimes, and when we needed to go to another church, I would use that money to help pay for their bus fares.
I tell you.
You know, and God, He blessed me immensely for the little things that I did.
Tell us about the medical school, because you eventually got accepted into medical school.
Right.
Was it easy sailing for you thereafter?
No, it wasn't, because when I got into medical school, that in itself was a miracle, because God actually told me before that I would have gotten into medical school.
He told you that?
He told me that.
You sure it was the Lord?
I knew it was a lot, because of how it happened. I knew it was a lot. What happened was I was involved in that particular summer. I was involved in some evangelistic outreach, and after we finished that meeting, on my way home, a voice said to me, "When you go home, there'll be a telegram at home addressed from the University of the West Indies." And when I reached home and I started unloading the van with all the grown provisions that the country people would have blessed me with, you know, my mother was there sitting at the step, just as how the vision I had. And she said to me, just as what the voice said to me, "Kirk, there's a telegram on the dresser." And indeed, there was a telegram from the University of the West Indies. And subsequently, that was a Friday evening, so I had to wait until the Monday. That Friday evening, I got a vision of exactly what would have happened the Monday. And on that Monday, when I went to the university, I remember the secretary saw me outside waiting, because I went very, very early. When I went to the room, she gave me a letter and said, "Congratulations, you have gotten into medical school." And I was so happy. I was just thanking God and just singing songs of praise. I even started making up my own songs, because I ran out of songs. And I remember, you know, I went to church on that Monday. We usually have fasting and prayer, and I remember I went to church that Sunday just to let them know what happened. And they had a mighty celebration. And then afterwards, they prayed for me that God would provide.
And I suppose you became an A student, summa cum laude.
Well, medical school was very hard and it was challenging and all. You know, one of my greatest concerns was where the money was going to come from to pay the school fee, because in Jamaica, you had to pay for your degree. So I remember I got 3 scholarships while I was there at university. The first scholarship was the Najaska scholarship, was a Marcus Garvey scholarship. And that in of itself was a miracle, because what happened was that I applied for the scholarship and I totally forgot about the scholarship that I applied for. And one day I was in mathematics class because I did 1 year of natural science. And one day I was in mathematics class, and this girl came to me at the end of the class and say, "Hey, congratulations, Kirk." And I was like, "Congratulations for what?" They said, "I saw your name on a board where they gave you this scholarship." I said, "What scholarship?" Then now I remember that I applied for the scholarship. And when I went to the administrative building, and they told me that, "Kirk, we were waiting for you for so long. We have been trying to get in touch with you. And guess what? This was the last day
Wow.
that we were going to wait for you." I was like, "Wow, that had to be God." The interview was the following Monday. I had chemistry class, and I told them, "Can I have the interview before my chemistry labs?" And they had the interview. It went well. Had my lab, and then afterwards I came back, and they told me that I got the scholarship.
Praise the Lord.
So that was one of the first scholarship that I got.
Wow, wow.
You know, and that helped me a little bit in terms of medical school. But God, was just so amazing. It never stopped there. I also got another scholarship. That scholarship was a Canadian scholarship, and that also helped me to pay with the fees and get the books and all. And then I got another scholarship. That was an amazing one. That was the government scholarship that I got. And when I got that scholarship, well, the story about that scholarship was that 3 months before, God told me that I would have gotten the scholarship.
Based on what you are saying, you are destined to succeed. So I suppose exams were quite easy for you to
No. Exam,
yeah, it should be. I mean, three scholarships.
No, it mean,
stay with me.
I had challenges. I had challenges.
Okay.
I say I have to be real. Some people like to talk about the successes and all the great things that have happened in their life, but I had failures. And I remember when I was in my final year of medical school, I had failures. I remember my final exam. I failed 2 of my subjects in the final exam. That was hard for me because this was not the opportunity for me to now pass and now, I know I could start work and help my mother and help my brother, but that didn't happen.
How do you relate, see God in all of that? If he had allowed you to get into medical school, surely he should have been there for success, but you have failed twice, you said.
Well, so I repeated the exam in 6 months' time, and I failed again. Now, that one was devastating because after fail the first time, it was okay to get over it the first time because my attitude was that people fail.
People
fail at times. But the second time when I failed, that was devastating. I remember when I saw the results, I cried. That morning I went to church. I usually play the drums at church, and I remember while playing the drums, tears was just, flooding my eyes. And what was the funny thing about that was that not many people in the church saw what was happening. And one lady at the end of the service, she said to me, she saw what's happening, and I explained to her why I was crying. And she said to me, God will never bring you this far to leave you.
Wow.
And I remember God just turned up big time. I was living in Jonestown still, but I remember a young man decided that he was going to pay for a room on campus for me so that it would be close to the university. And he was paying a certain amount of money per month. And then some of my other colleagues who passed before started helping me. They, buy groceries for me. One of the consultants. Actually, that consultant, I can remember, he's actually a Trinidadian. That was living in Jamaica. And he helped me, buy groceries and,
Beautiful.
So God helped me through that period.
We have so much. I know you want to share so much, Kirk.
So much, man, so much.
But if you have to give a testimony to somebody who's looking at this telecast, they have grown up in the jungle as well. Maybe not as bad as you are, maybe worse than what you have been through. And they're cursing themselves because they believe that this thing, God has cursed me and I can't do well. I want you to look at the camera and say to them, in a few seconds that we have left, a word of encouragement that can make them something special.
Yeah. My encouragement, to young people is that whatever you're going through in life, that you can trust God. With God, all things are possible. And I have been through a lot in my life, but if it wasn't for God in my life, I would not be where I am. So I encourage you to trust God. God is able to turn your situation around, however bad it may be.
Okay. Well, you're Jamaican. You must conclude it's some kind of Jamaican twang. You must give us something common to prove your ancestry.
Lord have mercy. God, I love you.
I've been speaking with the Jamaican Dr. Kirk Gooden as he speaks about the fact that Jesus was in the jungle. The last time I know of somebody in the jungle, he became my savior. Jesus grew up in Nazareth, but he became a savior. So there's hope for you. Even if you are born in the jungle, you are destined for the kingdom of God. Keep faithful to him, and he will take you there. And see you next time on JC 24/7. Have a good one.
Thank you for viewing JC 24/7. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and remember to inspire your living as you prepare for heaven. You can get it all on JC 24/7.